Few riders in modern MotoGP have built a career as unconventional as Jack Miller's. Throughout his time in the Premier class, two contrasting narratives have followed him. On one hand, he has long been regarded as a naturally gifted racer capable of delivering exceptional performances under the right conditions. On the other, questions over his ability to consistently maximize that talent have remained a recurring topic inside the MotoGP paddock. That discussion has resurfaced following former rider and manager Ricard Jove's assessment of Miller's career. Jack Miller has once again found himself at the centre of attention after Ricard Jove offered a candid evaluation of the Australian's career. Jove believes Miller possessed exceptional natural talent, but ultimately fell short of fully realising his potential when competing against MotoGP's elite. The comments come after Miller has spent more than a decade in the Premier class, ever since making the extraordinary leap directly from Moto3 to MotoGP in 2015. Bypassing Moto2 altogether, his career has stood apart from almost every other rider of the modern era. Honda's decision at the time was widely viewed as one of the boldest gambles in Grand Prix racing. Miller soon justified that faith by claiming his maiden MotoGP victory at the 2016 Dutch TT in Assen under wet conditions, showcasing remarkable bike control and adaptability. He later returned to the top step of the podium with Ducati in 2021, which remains the strongest campaign of his Premier class career. Speaking about Miller, Jove grouped him alongside Alex Rins and Maverick Vinales as riders blessed with extraordinary natural ability from a young age. However, he argued that once victories became harder to achieve and the level of competition intensified, they struggled to cope with the frustration that inevitably comes at the highest level. Jove also suggested that riders with exceptional talent can sometimes find it easier to blame external factors rather than identify their own shortcomings. From my perspective, these comments are less about questioning Miller's raw ability and more about evaluating how his career evolved over time. Inside the MotoGP paddock, talent may open the door, but the riders who consistently fight for championships are usually those who adapt fastest to changing motorcycles, tyres, regulations, and team environments. Miller has repeatedly demonstrated the speed required to win races, yet maintaining that level across an entire championship has consistently proved to be his greatest challenge. What also stands out is that Miller's reputation inside the paddock has never been defined solely by his race results. He remains highly respected for his technical feedback and his ability to work closely with engineers during motorcycle development. That has been one of the key reasons why several major manufacturers have continued to place their trust in him throughout his career. I read this as evidence that in MotoGP, a rider's value is measured not only by victories, but also by the contribution they make to a factory's long-term project. Viewed in a broader historical context, Miller's career remains unique. Very few riders in the modern era have moved directly from Moto3 to MotoGP. While that decision was initially considered highly risky, he went on to prove he belonged in the Premier class by winning Grand Prix and surpassing 200 MotoGP starts. That milestone alone places him among one of the most experienced riders of his generation. Within the paddock, discussions surrounding Miller's future continue to surface whenever contract negotiations begin. The confirmed fact is that his position is regularly reviewed as teams assess their rider lineups. There are strong indications that every race result carries increasing weight in determining whether he will remain on the grid. However, any speculation regarding his future should remain separate from confirmed information until an official announcement is made. I believe Miller's career should not be judged solely by whether he became a title contender. A more balanced assessment is recognizing how he has managed to remain competitive in an increasingly demanding MotoGP field. Rider turnover has accelerated significantly in recent years, making longevity itself an achievement. Surpassing 200 Premier class starts is something only a select group of riders have managed. In the short term, Jove's comments are unlikely to alter Miller's standing inside the paddock, but assessments like these inevitably shape how experienced riders are viewed. Over the longer term, Miller's legacy is likely to be remembered as that of a naturally gifted racer, a respected development rider, and one of Australia's most successful MotoGP competitors of the modern era, even if he ultimately fell short of consistently challenging for the World Championship. The current season will play a decisive role in shaping the final chapter of Miller's MotoGP journey. I still see him commanding considerable respect within the paddock, thanks to his experience and technical contribution. Yet in modern MotoGP, performance remains the ultimate currency. If he continues to deliver competitive results, opportunities should remain available. If not, the championship may soon reach the closing chapter of one of the most distinctive careers the Premier class has witnessed in recent decades. What stands out from this situation is that Jack Miller's standing inside the paddock remains stronger than his recent results alone might suggest. I still see several teams placing significant value on his technical feedback and his ability to contribute during motorcycle development. In modern MotoGP, riders with those qualities are increasingly difficult to replace because they help engineers accelerate the development process. That is why, despite the criticism surrounding his results, Miller continues to carry genuine value for several factory projects. Inside the paddock, the main focus is not Ricard Jove's criticism itself, but rather how Miller responds through his performances on track. The strongest indication is that every upcoming Grand Prix will become increasingly important in strengthening his position when teams evaluate their future rider lineups. I read this as a defining phase of his career, as manufacturers now place greater emphasis on consistency over occasional flashes of speed when assessing experienced riders. Looking at the broader picture, Miller's career also reflects how MotoGP's philosophy has evolved over the past decade. A direct promotion from Moto3 to MotoGP, as he experienced, is now highly unlikely given the level of competition across the championship. In the long term, his legacy may extend beyond his race victories. It will also be remembered as proof that taking an unconventional career path can still produce a long and respected career in the Premier class. At this stage, I see this discussion as more of an assessment of Jack Miller's career than a clear indication of his immediate future. The strongest signal inside the paddock is that his reputation as an experienced rider and capable development asset remains highly respected. At the same time, the greatest pressure rests on Miller himself, as his race performances will ultimately carry the most weight when teams make decisions about future rider lineups.